Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
For those of you who have joined us at the Polynesian Village Resort Hotel, aloha, and welcome aboard the Walt Disney World local monorail system. During the trip, we request that everyone please remain seated and that there please be no eating, drinking, or smoking. Thank you. Our next stop is the Magic Kingdom.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. I'm Tim Scott. This is ResortLoop.com. That pour means it's time for the show. We usually wait till after the open. Usually the drinking starts after the introductions, but let's get right to it. This is the DVC Roundtable. She's taking her drink, but first I'll introduce to you Emily Hansa Hicks. Hey, Emily.
Well, hello there, everyone. How are you? I was definitely not just pretending that I was poolside with a beverage.
With your cabana girl. We saw her deliver your beverage a little bit ago. We'll go around the horn before we introduce our guests. Yes. Also join us, Mr. Brad Coates.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be back.
It is good to be back. It feels fantastic. Also joining us, the original Super Looper, Mr. Joe Quattrochi.
Tim, what's going on, brother? How you doing, man?
We are doing fantastic here in Ohio. And Joe, you're somewhere else. Tell us where you are and who you're with, because this is going to be part of the show today.
Yeah, I'm currently in Charleston, South Carolina right now, and got a lot of activities planned this weekend here in the great state of South Carolina. Got some South Carolina football, a little NASCAR, but I'm currently at a friend of mine's house, Mr. Justin Suter, who is also one of my co-hosts, or actually one of his co-hosts, on the Disney Dads podcast. So, Justin, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I am super excited. I've been listening to the show for a long time. I am a DVC owner, and like I said, I may be one of the only people that spent my wedding money on a DVC contract, so I am here, and I am ready to talk DVC tonight.
Fantastic. Emily Hansa Hicks, she's bringing on a friend, a guest, and we're going to have some questions for them. Emily, introduce your friend.
Absolutely. He is a person that I immediately bonded with over the fact that we wish we had spent our wedding money on a DVC contract, and he and I have had many conversations, ultimately always concluding that he was going to buy DVC. It was just a matter of when. And now that he has two adorable, adorable children, he realized that he has to get serious about this. So he was planning a Disney trip. And as many people who are planning a Disney trip, especially a large Disney trip with family, realize it becomes a question of economics. If you want to get a nice room that's big enough for a family, or even a family with in-laws, then you may be better off buying DVC or renting DVC. But with renting, you have less control over the reservation itself. So this conversation spiraled into a decision, essentially, to get DVC for him, whether he likes it or not. And so I introduce you to Jeremy, and he's moving. And I'll let him finish the introduction if he has anything left to say.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity, and looking forward to getting all your advice on what's the best choice for me.
Yeah, this is a dangerous group, Jeremy, because we've had people on the show before, and they end up buying contracts.
They do.
So get your wallet ready, your checkbook ready.
If it makes you feel better, I feel like you have to make that decision beforehand. I think we're ready to go.
All right.
Fantastic. Jeremy, you got the round table here. We're at your beck and call. What's your first question? What are you considering?
Thanks. So I guess my question is, I am a long-time Disney person, been many times before. So I guess this isn't a spur-of-the-moment purchase. And now that my wife and I are starting to travel more with our kids, I think we're going to be expanding into getting suites or booking with our in-laws or a multi-generational trip. And because of that, we're really exploring an opportunity to purchase into DVC. I think ideally we are looking at something in the Epcot area, but we're a little concerned with the shorter terms on the Boardwalk and Beach Club resorts. And I've looked at Riviera, but while I love it, I guess I'm concerned about the resale restrictions and how that might affect me down the road on such a long contract. So I guess with that in mind, I guess if you would still consider purchasing at those locations, or if you would look at other opportunities or other DVC resorts.
All right, Tim, how do you want to handle this? Because I got some thoughts already that are coming into my head.
Just give us a little background. How old are your kids right now?
So my kids are 2 and 4 months.
Okay.
Still pretty young. They don't have a lot of input on the type of theming that they like. So that means I get to choose. But it's, I'm excited to bring them into the fold and start introducing them.
All right. Joe, why don't you start with your thoughts?
So the first thing is, I know you said you were interested in the Epcot area, which will obviously be Beach Club and Boardwalk Villas. Is this something that like it's an absolute must for you to stay at the Epcot area, or is this something that it's a more of a preference? Like I'd really like to stay there, but it's not a necessity.
I don't think it's a necessity. I just think that's where I usually gravitate towards. I guess I could be open to other places. It's just a matter of what makes sense. Because
with your kids being that young, and obviously, you're here on the Disney podcast, I assume that you're going to try to or want to have Disney vacations for a really long time. The length of contract really makes me nervous for you to, 2042. We don't know if Disney's going to be doing what they did at Old Key West, where they offered extensions to those original contracts. We don't know if they're going to do that right now. I will say this. I have a very good friend. I've talked about him on the show before. He's got 2 younger daughters. He originally bought at Bay Lake Tower. He eventually sold his Bay Lake Tower, but loves to stay around the Epcot Boardwalk area. His wife loves Beach Club. He ended up buying a bunch of resale contracts. He still got the blue card, though, but he bought a bunch of resale contracts at Saratoga. But he plans it enough where he always gets a 2-bedroom, and he gets it at 7 months, and he doesn't go at the most popular times. So as long as you're not going at like Christmas and Easter, I think you'll be able to buy somewhere else, have a length of contract, and also be able to, if you want to stay, in a larger room at the Epcot area, Boardwalk or Beach Club, you'll be able to do that. But the first thing, and I see him do it, that's why I'm saying that, but it really makes me nervous that your kids are that young to be buying a resale, or even if it's direct from Disney, a Boardwalk or Beach Club contract with so many years already off. It's already halfway done already. So that's what makes me a little nervous. I know, Justin, you had some thoughts too, I think.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it. If it's a preference, all right, let me give you my I think personal experience for someone who doesn't own at Boardwalk but stays at Boardwalk a lot. I own at the Grand Floridian. I own at Bay Lake Tower. Boardwalk tends to be, for me, one of those resorts, like Joe said, if you're not staying at peak times, and what I mean by peak times is Christmas, New Year's, spring break, stuff like that, I don't have a problem getting Boardwalk. I don't know how you all feel. I've never had an issue at 7 months, if I'm right on, being able to get Boardwalk. So if Boardwalk need to where you want to be in that area, which I agree. I love the area, especially for kids that age, because we started taking our daughter when she was 18 months old. Being able to walk to the parks is huge. Being able to walk into Epcot or even take the 10-minute walk to Hollywood Studios is a massive, massive gain for your family. But for me personally, like Joe said, having 20 years left on a contract and being a new DVC owner is a little scary to me. I probably wouldn't be my first purchase into DVC. Also, how much do you want that blue card? That's another thing to look at. How much do you want that direct contract through Disney? Is the perks enough for your family is that a must do? To give an example, I had 3 50-point contracts at Boardwalk. I waitlisted on a Disney cruise. Now, by the time it came through, we weren't we weren't looking to buy any more. But I think you have to make that decision. Do I want to make sure I purchase direct? Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Jeremy, are you a big food and wine guy?
Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
No, I was just asking, Jeremy, are you a big food and wine guy? Do you like to go during the food and wine festivals? Is that why you kind of gravitate towards that area?
I would say we usually go in like the October to March range. At least we have historically, avoiding those summer crowds and heat. So I think that's probably like when we'll go. With young kids, I know you say avoiding peak times, but unfortunately or not, they kind of operate on that school calendar, which means eventually we're going to have to.
Right.
So I guess that's something I'm considering.
All right, Emily, what were you going to say?
And man, is that a bummer when that happens too?
Right. And Jeremy has heard a lot of the things I already have to say, so I promise not to repeat myself today, Jeremy, except to recap for everybody. But I think that the length of contract, that was an excellent point about the length of contract, because if he's buying in, and I believe that Jeremy is a lifer and always has been, So I think he's going to be buy-in for life. So I think that the big long contract is the way to go, just at least as far as getting those years on the contract. Although, of course, there's going to be new resorts popping up every once in a while, so you can always buy in those places. But I think it was to Joe's point. I have never ever had a problem getting Boardwalk, except if you consider a problem that I have to monitor my DVC app waitlist alerts. So I'm using DVC app and I use the paid service, but I can always put together a trip. In fact, we have now assembled 2 trips that we have canceled because of COVID, at Boardwalk or at Grand, but we've been able to piece them together with waitlists and or the app. So yeah, I have never had a problem with getting Boardwalk. And the key that I'll just share with everybody, because I assume that most people won't listen to me anyway, so it's safe, is to look for Kidani, because they're a huge resort. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid of Saratoga, because you can almost always get something at Saratoga. And then Boardwalk, Garden, Pool Views, because those are the largest category of rooms. So if you are happy with the largest category of room at Boardwalk, and you understand that that's going to be the more expensive of the Boardwalk rooms, but still cheaper than the Grand Floridian or Polynesian or Riviera rooms, then if you're happy with the Boardwalk Garden View room, then you're golden, because we've always been able to put together a reservation, even last minute. Now you will find, of course, in your school calendar that you end up traveling on long weekends, which is kind of a fun thing, but I promise not to repeat myself. So, and I did already tell you that, but spring break, even if you're creative with spring break, and perhaps if your school system goes a week early, like our school system goes a little bit earlier than most people's spring breaks. It goes last week of March, and some spring breaks are sort of calibrated around more like the Easter holiday, for example, or something like that. We have the last week of March every week or every year, so we're able to plan for that. And so if you do plan at the 7-month window for Boardwalk or Beach Club, I really think you're almost always going to be able to get one of those if you're quick on the draw. And I know Jeremy is. He's a strategizer, and he's going to be the one who's like paying attention to those contracts and watching them. So, of course,
that's how I ended up here.
Right. So, and by the way, I would not have brought him over here if he had silly questions, because he had a bunch of advanced questions that I actually had to call my DVC guide today. So, yeah, I think you honestly would be better off buying a contract like Grand Floridian, even resale, or rather than resale, direct from Disney, but at the sold out price. And so Jeremy's done a lot of price research, so he has a really good concept of what the prices are for all the sold out resorts. And so, and then to totally contradict myself, I would say that because, and I've said this before, because dues are the largest part of your DVC investment, if you did get a shorter contract, you wouldn't have to worry that you were super overpaying. It's just that you wouldn't really be able to resell it at the end if you found that you're not going to use it. So the dues are really going to be the big money over the life of the contract, especially on actually less so on a shorter contract, but so it wouldn't be foolish to get one of those contracts, knowing that you're going to get out in 20 years. And if you want to keep doing it, you're going to have to buy a new contract. But I think I would go with the longer contract. And we bought it at Grand, and we brought it at Saratoga for the lengths of the contracts. And we stay at primarily Boardwalk and Animal Kingdom at this point, just because that's where we are in life. The kids like the animals, and we like Epcot.
I 100% agree with you, because we own a Grand Floridian and we stay at those 2 resorts and we never have issues. Just to give an example, we live, in Charleston, we're only 5 hours. So we typically go down about once a month. And these are not trips that we plan in advance, because we do have a 9-year-old, and all of a sudden we'll go down for 3 days over a long weekend, and we have never had an issue. And I think as long as you're not sold on one resort, I think your best bet's doing the long-term contract. Also, to your point, if doing a 20-year contract, what's going to be the cost of a full-term contract in 20 years? I mean, we've seen DVC balloon from original contracts to what they cost now. So, fast forward, once that contract's up and you want to keep going, and now you want to do a full-term contract, what's that going to cost you?
That's fair.
So true.
a lot of that, and you guys have touched a lot about the beach club and boardwalk. I guess, how does that relate to, I guess, I don't know if it's officially an Epcot area resort. I think it is, but Riviera, which is obviously connected by the Skyliner and is relatively close by.
I mean, for me, it's Riviera's nice. Got the Skyliner. That's always a plus, right? I've kind of come around on it a little bit, although I've spent quite a bit of time last month or two in Disney, and a lot of times with our beautiful Central Florida thunderstorms, it's really not, it's not moving a lot of times. But the resale thing, we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show, and that's just, unless they change it, that's just, if you got to get out for some reason, it's not going to be, that's not a plus. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're looking, are you looking maybe for Riviera for like the blue card? Is that one of the reasons maybe you're asking about Riviera? I mean, or do you really like that resort a lot?
So, I mean, I do like that resort, but
okay.
I also, and I think and one of the things that you're looking at when you're picking a home resort is places I may want to stay at, right?
Sure.
So I think that if I had to pick 3, it would probably be those 3. And if I'm already eliminating 2 off the table, that only leaves 1 left. So I guess before I start, hacking away at all my potential home resorts, I want to make sure that I'm, thinking about all of them fully. But
I think it's one of those things. You really, if you're going to invest this kind of money, and if that's what's important to you, then what do we always say, guys? Buy where you want to stay, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, right. I mean, if it's really that important to you, man, you know what? Then you just got to run the numbers, and if you could do it, I mean, then I think that's because the last thing you want to do is spend this amount of money, be invested in this, because this is a real estate transaction, right? It's a big deal. It's a big purchase. And then have buyer's remorse and be like, oh, crap, I should have bought here. I should have bought there. That's one of those things where it's like, you know what? You got to be happy. You want to feel good about that purchase because it's a place you always love to go and vacation at. So if it's one of those things where you're like, you know what? I bought at Saratoga and it's okay, but now I have to wait till 7 months to book Riviera or whatever. If that's going to impact your view about your vacations, then maybe that extra money that you spend makes you sleep easy at night, makes you excited about it. Be like, I'm a Riviera owner and I don't care about the resale restrictions. I mean,
I think real quick too, before we go too far, that we need to preface that it's easy to get boardwalk at 7 months. Beach Club's a different story. So when you're looking at those 2 resorts between
that is
the 2,
true.
It's completely night and day. I mean, Beach Club can be a very tough resort to get. I'm at that 7 month mark. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So you're not lumping those 2 together in your decision and thinking, okay, at 7 months, I'm going to be able to get this as easy as I can boardwalk.
Hey, Tim, I want to ask, not that I'm hosting the show.
No, you're fine.
I want to bring Brad into this.
I was just going to ask. I saw him shaking his head at one
Brad
point.
deals a lot with, Disneyland and Grand California and all that stuff and having hard, to get reservations. I want to know what Brad's, because Brad deals in the Disneyland world a lot. So. And Brad's on mute.
Brad, you're muted.
Brad is like, I am not sharing my wisdom with you. You do not deserve it today.
Brad, you're muted.
I see. I believe that we could hear him if he
If I was unmuted?
mechanically.
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, just start over. You're
fine.
Yeah. I said all the really good stuff. I had 12 things on the list to cover, but you guys covered them all. So I was like, yep, mark that one on. So they gave you some great stuff, Jeremy. But I would add one key thing, and that's just my different view. But we're trying to give you all the different views so you can make an educated decision for your family. While it is important to view the long-term value of a contract, et cetera, in the end, dollar sign should not determine the full brunt of the decision you make. If Beach Club, and Dustin said it, if Beach Club is critical, you just really gotta, I've owned for 15 years, bought my first contract, Saratoga Springs. Until about 2 years ago, I had never stayed a single day at Saratoga Springs.
Crying shame.
Mm-hmm.
I had stayed everywhere else. And I've stayed in pretty much all of the resorts. There's only a couple left for me to do. So, you can get in. You can get into Beach Club. It's hard, but you can. I got into Boardwalk just a few weeks ago. That one's a little bit easier. But if it's critical, if your mindset is this is the resort I want to go to the most, this is my go-to, then you got to kind of decide which you're wanting, Jeremy, is you're wanting the best of all worlds. You want to get a great price for the place you want to stay. Well, so do we. But Walmart's not running any blue light specials on beach clubs, so we got to kind of make that decision. So, but I think in the long run, you're on the right track. Maybe you buy a smaller contract with one of those locations, and you buy it knowing it's a more short term, and then you do split stays, and you stay at least a couple of days, your favorite resort every trip out. And then you buy a longer contract into another resort there's points that are more reasonable. The contracts are longer, and I'm a big proponent of Animal Kingdom only because of the price. Grand Floridian is great. That's a 2064 contract. That's a lot of years, but the price point is anything up that long, you're definitely paying a much higher price point. You got to balance it out. Where Animal Kingdom, you can get pretty cheap contracts, and it's 2057, I believe. So, and then you had mentioned in your questions wondering about doing multiple small contracts. I don't know, Joe, Dustin, Emily, I think all of us would probably agree buying too many small contracts isn't a smart way to go, because then they're all broken up. And you were right. When you go to put them together, I have 2 contracts, and unfortunately I wasn't plugged into cool places like this and learned about use years. So I have different use years, and they're impossible to tie together.
Because you're going to be limited if you break it up to say to like 100 here, 100 here, 100 here, for example. You're going to be like, I can only book 100 points or worth of nights at Beach Club, and then you have to wait for your 7-month window, and hopefully you can tack onto it. It just becomes it becomes a job. It becomes a chore. And it's tough to keep track of it.
Because Jeremy asked the question. He says, the way I understand it, you can only use your points for that resort. And that's correct, for 11 months. You can't tie your points from another resort to this one and then create this one into an 11-month window. It won't work. Those points, if you have Beach Club and you have Animal Kingdom and you're trying to book at the 11-month window for Beach Club, only the Beach Club points will work at 11 months. You can use Animal Kingdom to stay there, but you got to wait till 7-month window. So,
and I will say, if anyone can figure that out and manipulate it, I believe that Jeremy can handle that.
Yeah.
But I do think though that what that will put him in the position of doing is creating a situation where he's always having to figure out way in advance where he wants the next vacation to be in 2 years. Mm-hmm. Because of course you can then borrow, steal, whatever, points into 1 year at one resort. So of course you could rotate, like, this year we're going to use all of our boardwalk points. This year we're going to use all of our beach club points. This year we're going to use all of our Grand Floridian points because we love ourselves and we're going to treat ourselves to the best. But that means that you have to plan like 3 years out in advance and always be thinking about that. So the advantage of having either 1 or 2 home resorts, this is sort of piggybacking off of what you said, Brad, is basically that you can just you have a lot more flexibility year to year, which you will find, at least I think, and you guys can speak to this, as a DVC member, you start thinking about it. The first couple of years, you are very planny. And then the second, couple of years, you're like less so. And then eventually you're kind of like, I always have a place to stay. I like Saratoga Springs, so whatever. And then you get to the place where you're just like, hey, I don't really feel like planning too far in advance. We'll see what I feel like that year and what my kids are into. And so then you start getting a little bit more fluid, and that's where it helps to sort of have consistency with your contracts and not have to be thinking too hard.
And it is good.
That sounds like me right now.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think most people would agree that it's good. If you're going to do 2 contracts is nice because then you get 2 11-month windows. So you can try some different things. But you usually just get 1 contract, either both of them around the same size. If you got enough money, buy enough to where you can stay the amount of time you want to stay. And then I rent my points out a lot. You can earn money back off of your points, and you keep it long enough, they become very profitable. But normally you just buy 1 big contract that will satisfy your needs. And then you buy 1 other small contract where you can add on split stay days and get a little bit more flexibility, or save those points for a couple of years and then stay at that resort. And so maybe that's where you kind of look at what to do.
And one thing I was trying to convince Jeremy to do was to buy direct and then split his purchase into multiple small purchases. But unfortunately, apparently, the guide informed us, or his guide informed him, and my guide informed me that you can't do that anymore directly. You have, if you want to get the member benefits, you have to be an existing member to split them up into small contracts. And then if you want the member benefits, you have to have 150 points solid.
Oh, yeah.
Period.
Yeah, you can still split it and get the blue card, but one of those splits has to be enough points to earn the blue card all by itself.
Oh, yeah. So I did not know that, because when we bought direct, we actually bought, we sliced it up. I've talked about this before in the show, but we sliced it up 3 ways, and they were all much smaller than the bottom amount. But my guide basically explained to me today that it was because that way nobody was surprised when they say inherit the contract and they don't get member benefits. And now I'm not sure if that's like really the reason that Disney's decided on that policy. But the interesting part that Jeremy is, like I said, brilliant. But he figured out
just investigating.
Investigating. He's a thorough investigator. But he figured out that basically if you did buy a small resale contract, like say a 25-pointer at Boardwalk or wherever, he could then purchase chunks at the direct price, and they do add those together to create the 150 if he's an existing member. But the problem is, Jeremy is not, I don't think he has the time frame, because he's hoping to go for spring break with family. And so wherever he pieces this together to make it make financial sense and to convince his lovely wife, I think he's going to want to book that trip with, at least for their room, a nice DVC room. So does anybody have thoughts about that strategy? Because that was the one, I mean, I'm telling you, this guy knows what he's talking about. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so when I called, one of the things that I was, looking into ways that I could maybe assemble the contracts that I wanted, and I considered booking or buying resale, like a small contract, whether that be, you see things out there for 25, 50 points, whatever it may be. And then once you're already lined up as a member, you can then technically do the add-on contracts at the add-on rate and quantity through Disney Direct to get up to 150. So that's a way to, I guess, get around that initial 150 point purchase, I believe. But I don't know if you guys have heard of that, or is that something that you guys know people do?
Well, even if you do that, I don't know if that's even possible, but I'm looking on DVCResaleMarket.com just like for the really small contracts, and Saratoga is reselling for those 25 and 50, 30 point, 50 point contracts for like 170 a point. So, you got to like run the numbers and see if you did a bunch of little contracts, if you just better off buying a larger contract for like, because I know Saratoga's going for like 130 right now, 120, which is crazy.
So Joe, my logic was if he was going to get Riviera, because a smaller contract almost always sells faster and with a higher point value, that if he was to split up a Riviera purchase 3 ways, he would sort of mitigate the damage of the resale restrictions. But what I didn't get the chance to tell you about Jeremy today is that I talked to my guy, and he noted that if you do, so I'm telling everybody sort of in the ether here so that I don't misrepresent this, but if you do will the contract, so say you were to split it up 3 ways or whatever, if they, after buying resale, however it ends up happening, or maybe you just add on immediately or something. But if you do will the contract, or, basically give the contract to somebody for no money, then those people will receive those benefits. So say you were to will your contract, like whatever, or in some way transfer the contract to your kids, those kids will still get the member benefits, and they will still get the exchange into RCI, or not RCI, because you get the exchange into RCI no matter what if you have Riviera. But if your kids would essentially be able to exchange into Boardwalk.
You get all the benefits except for the blue card benefits.
They as long as if the contract wasn't large enough for the blue card, it's yes. But if the contract
doesn't matter.
Like let's say he splurges and gets 300 points and he gets them into $150 or 150 point contracts, then each of his kids would inherit the full contract with all the benefits and be able to exchange into the legacy resorts, but they also would be full members. Is the way I understood it today.
Excellent.
Well, and speaking of the blue card too, just something that we all know about is the APs just going up, and you guys being outside of the Florida bubble, unlike myself, at least DVC giving that blue card, at least it gives you another option for an annual pass if you're going to be going down there a little bit. We always talked about this, right, guys? Like, is the benefits enough of having that blue card? Well, how much the APs went up, having that next level pass that has some blackout dates, the old gold pass, which is what the sorcerer pass now.
Mm-hmm. Sorcerer pass, yeah.
That might make a difference now going forward. I mean, that's just something to think about as well, just to add on to the sandwich, right?
Well, think about this. So that's a decision we're making as a family right now because we've had APs for 10 years. We went 5 trips. When they reopened, we went August, September, October, November, December. We let our passes go, and then we were not able to renew because we had already entered the parks after they reopened. So now we're at whenever they reopen passes to DVC members, we are now at $8.99, right? Mm-hmm. But if we weren't DVC members, we would have to be at $12.99. So there's $400 a person. I have 3 people in my family. So now I'm $1,200 a year. I'm saving with my DVC membership on our annual passes. Right. That's a big chunk of change.
But as we've always said on here, just as a reminder, it's not guaranteed.
No, it's not guaranteed. No.
10 years ago, that's the only time I really bought annual passes because they had such good deals for DVC members. And well, let's just buy it and we'll go make sure we get out there 2 times, 3 times. And then it went away. And then there was really no deals on tickets for a while. And then it came back. And then you could get park discounts. And then those went away. And then, so they come and they go. But right now, and I'm hoping the way they're structuring the annual pass now, the way that it looks, doesn't it feel like maybe they're using their heads and thinking we need to make the DVC thing kind of grandfathered in? I'm hoping, but there's no guarantee.
Another thing to think about on top of everything, So I will say this. I think more than ever now, we've said this before, like I was a very big resale proponent. My 2 contracts are resale, but I was grandfathered in. But I definitely think, with your purchases, you need to do something direct. I'm a big proponent of that. I think it's only going to get worse. To get the blue card. I definitely think it's something that, like, if you could swing it financially, I definitely think you should try to do something to get your blue card and then add on to that. Your contracts after that.
I agree. And, I think my intent here is, to make the minimum initial direct purchase, right? And then add on as needed or at least as much as I can control myself. And then,
you can't.
So in mind, it sounds like you guys have some concerns about those Epcot resorts. I guess then that leads to, if I can't buy at the resorts I theoretically want to stay at, and I've eliminated that benefit of the home resort, right? What is the best value out there, knowing that I'm throwing that perk out the window?
That's a great question, Jeremy, and I think you just stated it so perfectly. I personally think that Riviera. So I was a big proponent when I first talked to him about getting Copper Creek, because I thought Copper Creek is the right blend of longevity and then tradability and resaleability, because I don't think Copper Creek has resale restrictions. So if that is the case, I think I would try to get Copper Creek sold out from Disney, or Grand Floridian sold out from Disney, or Polynesian sold out from Disney, because those are all recent contracts with longer terms, and they have the tradability into the other resorts. But I also note that there is a huge difference in price between, like, I think that Riviera is only $201, and Jeremy knows all the numbers. But Jeremy, what was the price of Grand sold out from Disney direct?
Floridian.
Yeah,
so they've actually stopped selling Grand Direct, at least as the last I heard, and I'm going to make a guess that that's because they're going to announce the 2022 sales coming up.
Well,
yeah, probably.
Here's where DVC News had it listed last time. They were talking about base price, $255 per point.
Wow,
that's what was in my mind. Yeah, so basically Riviera is only $201 a point, and there is some tiny incentive, like $400 or something, if you went with the direct contract. So I guess if you weren't willing to, if Copper Creek is a place you just never want to stay and it doesn't appeal to you, then you probably should not buy there, even though I still would. But I think
what I want is at least a place that has 1 bedrooms, right? So that at least eliminates Poly off the board.
Agreed. Agreed.
I don't know what
That's
else.
a good point.
Hey, Jeremy, are you a gambling man?
Floridian is the only place to buy, right? Right, Justin? I think Grand Floridian is the... Yeah,
you were talking about how addicting. You said, I'll try to control myself. I bought my first contract in 2010, and in 2012, I was like, oh, I want 200 more points at the Grand Floridian. I couldn't stop, so welcome to the club.
Yep. Yeah, of course.
Jeremy, I don't know if you're into gambling.
One thing I will say about Grand is that any of the smaller resorts have great resale value because they're small.
Yeah, Jeremy, I was going to say, I don't know if you're into gambling, but, there's rumors occasionally that they're going to expand the Skyliner to the Animal Kingdom Lodge and maybe, the Grand Destino Tower there. What is that? I'm blanking on the name. Coronado Springs.
Oh, geez.
I mean, that's a rumor. I mean,
my
you don't know,
kids are obsessed with Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
So we would have to buy add-ons. Although I will say Animal Kingdom is one of those places that I've never not been able to get a whole combo. You know what I mean? Like,
it's so huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's just so many rooms. So basically, any of the large resorts are going to have essentially a good purchase in price because there's so many people selling contracts. And then they're going to have great availability regardless.
And that's one of the hard balancing things, Jeremy. It's that we all deal with it. It's like, okay, you want it for the most amount of years, but really, why do you want the most amount of years? Are you going to live long enough to enjoy it until 2068? You look like
he will. He will.
I don't look like I'm 85 years old, but he's
a young buck.
So, but yeah. But in the end, and then we always say, well, we're going to give it to our kids. Well, you know what? I'm already discovering my kids are total Disney geeks. But it's almost like now when I'm talking about it, it's like, we would kind of like to be at this resort. It's almost like they want to take my points, sell them, and then go get what they want. So it's like,
yeah, right.
And Jeremy, I'll say
concern.
This. I'll say this. When I purchased my DVC, my first contract in 2014, 2015, I bought a Saratoga on the advice of a friend of mine who was just like, this is the best value. The maintenance dues are low. And I was like, fine. I ended up buying another 30 points at Saratoga. I was a Magic Kingdom guy. I stayed at the Grand Floridian and the Contemporary and the Polynesian. And I was like, that's where I want to stay. I want to stay at a monorail. I want to stay at a Resort Loop hotel. And over the last 6 years, and Justin knows this because I do a show on Disney Dads, called Split Stays, and we talk about resorts and all that stuff. You guys know I'm Saratoga Joe. I have fallen head over heels in love with Saratoga Springs, and I never thought I'd see that day. Where my wife and I just spent a week there a couple weeks ago. We absolutely loved it. We're going back next weekend to Saratoga Springs, and we absolutely love it. And it's quiet, and we love to play golf, and it's just something that we never thought we would love. Disney Springs rocks. We love it there. So I will say this: you think you like something now, and I think that you should definitely invest in that. But you know what, man? Sit and spend hours. You sound like a researcher, just like the rest of us, right? Watch a bunch of YouTube videos. If you have a car while you're down there the next time, you might buy your first contract, right? That's fine. But you know what? Drive around the resort, walk around. A lot of people don't like Saratoga. They look at it as a giant apartment complex. You know what? My wife and I, we drive everywhere. Justin, when he goes on vacation, he drives everywhere. We love it. I've gone away from the buses. I drive everywhere. I've fallen in love with the place. I love Saratoga Springs. So, I mean, just don't rule out something because you might think you don't like something, and then you'll say, oh my God, I really do like it. Like I stayed at Animal Kingdom Lodge once, and this bothers Justin a lot because he likes Animal Kingdom Lodge. My wife and I, Jen and I, we didn't like it. And that's fine. After a day, we're like, okay, the Savannah's cool, but it's just not our thing. And that's fine. We love to visit. We love Sanaa. We love Boma. That's fine. But, it wasn't for us. And that's the thing. So just don't rule out something. But you're a researcher. I know I have confidence. I know we're just confusing you more by being on the show tonight. But I'm just saying you never know that you might fall in love with something or your family might fall in love with something that you never really thought could happen.
Let me get away from the terrible point that Joe ended with and go back to his first point, which was a great one, okay? Because Animal Kingdom is amazing and it's a lot of fun.
Thank you, brother.
It's a great resort. There's nowhere else in America you can go and have that experience. Just not happening.
Truth.
You and I have a very similar situation to when I looked into DVC with a very small child. And the reason I purchased on the monorail loop was because in my head I thought, I'm going to be on the monorail. I'm going to be in the Magic Kingdom almost every day I'm in the parks. Fast forward, we rarely go to the Magic Kingdom. We're at Epcot. We're at Hollywood Studios. My kid wants to go on Rock and Roller Coaster and Hands Up on Tower of Terror. So life changes as you go, and it's a great point, Joe. So what you think may be that point now that you have to have that 10 years from now might not be the same. And so I know we're throwing so much at you right now. Here's the simplest thing I could tell you. I would take a map of the Disney property. I would circle the areas and I would write pros and cons, and I would just sit down as a family and just say what works best for us. You know, is it resorts? Is it being at the boardwalk? Is it being at the Epcot resorts? Do we want to be closer to the Magic Kingdom? Or do we just like the atmosphere of Saratoga? Do we like the quiet of Saratoga? Do we like the quiet of Old Key West? You know, for me, that's the decision that has to be made. Then you look at money. You know, it's money is that. It's hard to say money's the second thought, but you have to be really confident and really happy with your decision, and then you look at the financial
don't have buyer's
aspect.
regrets. You know what I'm saying? And it sounds like your heart is really set on the Hollywood Studios boardwalk. I mean, it really does. I mean, just you want one of those 3 resorts. I mean, if you could do it, brother, if you could swing it, I mean, then focus your attention on that. But because from this thing, it doesn't sound like you really want to look elsewhere. You're really focused on those couple resorts, and you got to be happy with your purchase, because the last thing you want is for a bad decision or to make a decision and then it ruins your Disney trips and you're kind of stuck with it. And then you're going to take a loss by trying to sell it or do whatever. Or every time you go to book a trip, you're going to be frustrated, like, oh, I got to wait till 7 months out. So, I mean, I feel like we're giving different advice than we
I do. I feel like we're all over the place.
I know, right?
His head's going to explode. I'm so sorry.
So what do you guys think if he was to say, I'm going to buy 150 points, I'm going to buy 200 points at Riviera. I'm going to buy 150 points, and then I'm going to buy a 50-point secondary contract so I can get rid of it if I want to. Do you think that would be a wise choice if he wants to regularly not only stay in Riviera, because I think he would be very happy there and I think his wife would love it, but if he was to then also try to trade into Boardwalk and Beach Club as much as we do you think he would be happy with that purchase, or do you think he really needs to go through more soul searching, given that he's sort of isolated the areas that they're going to be in mostly?
Well, the other side of Riviera is, it's a beautiful resort. It's good. It's somewhat centrally located. It's got a location. It's connection to the Skyliner. It's got a lot of great features to it. It's a good resort to stay at. The other side of the coin of Riviera is, though, with a bigger family and talking about possibly wanting to do 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms, their point charts are a little high at Riviera.
Yeah.
So 150 points won't go very far outside of studios, which are tough to get there. So that's the other thing. So not making the money. Let me throw something out. Joe, Emily, Dustin, what do you guys think? Maybe what, Jeremy, you need to do, buddy, because the one thing Joe said it, you do not want to rush in. You don't want to listen to our show and then just make your decision. You don't want to have done the research, because you never know. What I might encourage you to do is this: rent points or buy a small other resort contract, lower pricing, to where you have your first set of points that you're going to use for your 7-month window, wherever. Just make sure you get the same use year when you get the contract. But and then make a trip out and make part of that trip, you and your wife and your kids spend a day or two hopping from resort to resort to resort. Go look at them. Go experience them a little bit, because I think you may show up at one, and like they said, I doubt there's a resort there that you won't like for one reason or another. It's just Disney World is an amazing experience, and the resorts are very different, but they're all fantastic. And so maybe go and look before you make a clinical decision. Go include your heart in the process. See what you think, not what we think, because Joe just said it. I mean, we love Joe. I mean, this is America. He has the right to be wrong. But
I know, especially by Grand Floridian.
We loved Animal Kingdom. I mean, I bought my second contract there. So go see what you think. Then
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea.
I will say, the first time we committed to do exactly that, and then we bought a contract anyway before we even got on our prospecting trip. So, Jeremy, if you're anything like me, this advice is great, and you will listen to it partially, except you will also buy a contract first. So, but
you're
exactly right, Brad.
Pick a resort. You'll use it.
Right, and Jeremy's enough of a lifer. I can just tell you all, at least in my estimation, he's going to be happy wherever he buys, and he's smart enough to figure out how to find the resorts he wants at the times he wants. And if he's not smart enough, he's got me in his back pocket to back him up there. So whatever you choose, Jeremy, is going to be the right decision because you'll make it work. And you will never, as Brad points out, every single trip is going to be amazing. And every one of those resorts is different. And we do, like, one of our thoughts was, no matter where we buy, we want to stay at all the resorts. So, like, we have stayed at most of them. We haven't stayed at Vero, and we haven't stayed at Hilton Head. We haven't stayed at Grand Floridian, Grand Californian. But I think we've hit every other, no, not Copper Creek, because as you pointed out, Jeremy, they don't have a unit size that works for us other than the cabin, and that's just not in the cards yet. So,
Jeremy, on behalf of the cast of the DVC Roundtable, we apologize for just confusing you.
I did warn him. We were just going to talk.
Well, I think you learned too that the DVC is different for each individual. Like, what works for me doesn't work for Joe. And so as you talk through things, and I love the idea of going down and experiencing the resorts because something that you like personally, your wife might not, or you might see your kids and they enjoy something that you never thought they might enjoy there. So I love that idea. I think it's great. I wish that honestly I had done that, but I had a wad of cash burning in my pocket for a wedding, and I was just like, I want to spend it. And Bay Lake Tower was open, and that's what we bought first. And so, but I love the idea. I think it's fantastic to go and experience each resort, or the ones you're really keen on. Yeah. But I will say this:
you just raised another great picture. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, if you do want to do Riviera, I'll give you 4 words that will change your mind and keep you there, and you're going to love it. Top, lean, no.
Oh, so right. So right. And also, we stayed at Riviera over our last trip. It was amazing. Riviera's amazing, and they have boat races, or they did, at the pool every morning. It's like an amazing resort. Yeah, it's really nice. Is beautiful. Yeah, and my husband, just out of nowhere, was like, hey, you know what? It wouldn't be too bad if we stayed at Riviera again. I was like, we can't afford that. But like, that was a splurge, honey, because we got Riviera that one time, but now it's going to be booked all the time. But to that point, so like, you will find, Justin, your point about his wife. The other thing you can do is you buy your entry contract. You just buy 150 points at Riviera. Call it a day. Done. Easy peasy. In for the longest term contract at a nice resort you'll be happy to stay at. You can borrow to get up to 450 if you need to 1 year. And then you say, darling wife, I won't reveal her name for privacy reasons, but darling wife, where would you like us to buy our next contract? Boom, you win. You get a second contract. Just saying. You pick it, any resort, honey. Like, pick it. Yeah. And then she's a partner because his wife, I don't know if she's as Disney-fied as he is, but I think that this is a really good way. First of all, I think Riviera will knock her socks off almost as much as the Grand would. But I think the Riviera is a pretty impressive first experience. Don't you guys?
It's beautiful. It's breathtaking when you walk in. Not even when you walk in, when you pull up, it is breathtaking. And I've spent more money there in merchandise than anywhere else on property because my daughter's name's Riley, and the R is on every bit of merchandise, and she thinks that's
hers.
That's the greatest spot on earth.
Hey, there's a question I never asked you, Jeremy, and it's probably important. What do you see as far as long-term, the level of investment that you're thinking you're going to spend? Trust me, that's going to change. But because here's the only drawback to what Emily's saying is if 150 points was like what you're maxing for several years, because that for us, that was like we bought a 200-point contract. That was all we could afford for a long time. If you buy that one contract, then and max out that one contract, and then you can't really do anything to buy more points at a resort that ends up not being, it may be difficult to add on. But what's what's your thinking on how many points you want to have? You don't really.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily have a cap. I guess we'll start small and go from
All the
there.
points.
There you go.
Riviera's middle, little bit, not really middle price, but it's of the new stuff. It's the better priced.
Mhm.
It's great location. It's got great features. It's not a bad resort to start to build on. So
Yeah, my only concern is it on resale, and it's actually not even on the resale value. My concern is holding a contract that I can't sell in 30 years.
yeah, and the jury's still out on
right.
that. Some contracts have come available, and they've been selling at a pretty solid price.
Hmm.
But there's no guarantee that's going to last. And so
Right.
if you're doing this as an investment, because that's one of the things I tell people all the time. I bought my first contract in 2006, and I bought Saratoga. It wasn't even built yet. Here's the funny story. I bought points for a Disney World resort, DVC, and I had never been to Disney World, and I didn't go until 4 years later.
That's crazy.
I used it and went to Grand California every year, multiple times. But
Wow.
I'd never even been to Disney World for 4 years. I was always going to Disneyland. So, everybody's story is a little different. But here's the thing. My points, what I could sell my Saratoga for today is markedly higher than what I paid.
Oh, yeah.
Not double.
We paid 55
but
points.
close.
55 a
Mhm.
point.
Oof. Yep.
We paid 55 a point in 2012.
Yeah,
Like, I don't even.
sale in 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Crazy.
paid almost that for direct.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
62, I think it was.
It makes me
Well, we
happy
talked
for you
about this
and
before.
makes me cry inside.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
I should have done it quicker.
The key is
Yeah, so
the key is to buy now. Whenever now is,
yeah.
just
So,
buy now because it will go
the
up.
good news is it does make a point, because if you're thinking of it as an investment, like I told my kids, I'm fine. You want me to sell the points? I'll sell them. I'll get more value out of it now. And if you want to stay somewhere else, but yeah. Okay. Well,
You got some homework to do.
You're good.
yeah.
definitely.
Jeremy, before we wrap, do you have any other questions? Anything we can address?
No, I think that was it. Thank you guys so much for your time. Really appreciate all your thoughts.
So, Jeremy, right now, where are you leaning? No commitment. We're just curious.
So I think I'm leaning toward Saratoga, actually.
Attaboy.
Oh.
I think the balance of the purchase price, the lower dues, and the walkability to Disney Springs makes the most sense on our first
You're a
contract.
wise man.
with
And you're going to
the-
buy that first contract, you're going to buy that one resale, or you're going to buy it direct?
I would probably buy that one direct because the
Points are
price
so
difference
cheap.
is
Exactly what I was
not
thinking.
that much.
Mhm.
He's smart. I told you he was smart. And Saratoga is awesome, by the way. We really love it. Love it.
Awesome.
I'll
Jeremy,
be there in 9 days. I love it.
now I'm
So,
jealous of you. I'm jealous of
Jealous.
everybody here.
And the refurb is great. So
Fantastic. Jeremy, you going to keep
I
us posted
can
as to what you
seriously.
do?
Absolutely.
Yeah, keep Emily posted. We'll have you back on afterwards if you don't mind. We'll hear why you did what you did.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll hopefully let you know about a future stay.
All right, Emily, where can somebody find you?
They could find me hanging out in the Resort Loop, or Looper Nation Live, or doing virtual runs, or, yeah, just talking to Jeremy about DVC.
I was going to say you're feeding him information. That's great.
Right.
Brett Coates.
Ratings. You'll find me on my home planet. I feel like I'm on a different planet nowadays, but anyway, yeah, I'm hanging out Looper Nation. I'm at papamouse101@hotmail.com if you wanted to reach out with specific questions directly, and I'm on the My DVC Points podcast most of the time, and hanging out wherever people are talking about Disney. I love to talk me some Disney.
Oh, who doesn't? Mr. Joe Quattrochi. Where are you at?
Twitter, Instagram at Joe Qua. I'm back on Facebook. You can find me over there. I'm over in Looper Nation Live as well. Finally rejoined that world over there after being off of Facebook for a little bit. Mickey Dudes podcast, and of course here with my brother Justin Suter over at the Disney Dads podcast as well.
Don't steal his thunder because I was going to him next. Justin, where can somebody find you?
Yeah, you can find us anywhere that you can hear podcasts at Disney Dads Podcast. You can go to DisneyDadsPodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook, Disney Dads Podcast. Family on Facebook is a family-oriented, positivity-driven Facebook group. So if you don't want to find, it's a lot like Resort Loops. It's all that
Gotcha.
positivity out there. Boom, boom, boom. So
I love
trying to
that.
fill the world with happiness.
Oh, I love it. Jeremy, do you have any social media or anything you'd like to share?
Oh, absolutely not. Hidden myself from social media for years.
Smart man.
Outstanding. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us on the show. Everybody, I'm Tim Scott, Facebook, Twitter, the website, ResortLoop.com. Anyway, you've been listening to The Gateway to the Magic. Take us out, guys.
See ya, everybody.
Vacation memories will stay with you and your family for a lifetime. The Resort Loop Travel Group was created with this in mind. Our fee-free services will relieve you of the stress and confusion of finding and booking the best vacation at the best price. After booking, we will continue to monitor for ways to save you even more on your vacation. We will check for any upcoming packages and discounts to save you as many vacation dollars as possible. Resort Loop Travel Group, gateway to your magical vacation memories. Get a quote, or for more information, visit ResortLoopTravelGroup.com.